The massive transport ship Calthar's fist moved through space like a hungry beast. Inside its metal belly, 3,000 human workers sat in cramped cages, breathing stale air that smelled of sweat and fear. They had been prisoners for so long that many had forgotten what freedom felt like. Jiho pressed his face against the small window of his cell. Outside, he could see his home planet growing larger. Earth looked so beautiful from space, blue and green and perfect. But Jiho knew it was not perfect anymore. The Caltharians had taken everything good from it. "Look," whispered Mina from the cell next to his. She was pointing at something on her small communication device. The Caltharians let them keep these devices because they thought humans were too stupid to use them for anything dangerous. They were wrong. On the tiny screen, Jiho could see news from across the galaxy. The Caltharian Empire controlled over 10,000 worlds. They had ruled for 3,000 years. Every species they found became their slaves. The Caltharians were 8 feet tall with gray skin and black eyes that showed no kindness. They saw other life forms as tools to be used until they broke. "My daughter would be 23 now," said Old Man Hyun from another cell. His voice was rough from years of breathing bad air in the mines. "I wonder if she remembers my face." Jiho closed his eyes. He remembered his own family. His wife Sora had been taken to work in the weapon factories on the moon Kef 7. His son Tai was probably in a training camp, being taught to forget his human nature and serve the Empire. The Caltharians did this to every family they captured. They broke them apart so they could not give each other strength. The ship began to shake as it entered Earth's atmosphere. Through the windows, Jiho could see the planet's surface. Where green forests used to grow, there were now gray mining sites. Where blue oceans used to shine, there were now black oil rigs. The Caltharians had been busy. "Attention, human cattle," came a voice through the speakers. It spoke in the harsh Caltharian language, then repeated in broken human words. "You will work in Sector 12. You will dig until you find what we need. Those who do not work will not eat. Those who try to escape will be killed slowly." The humans in the cells looked at each other with tired eyes. They had heard these words so many times before. Some of the younger ones still had fire in their hearts. Some of the older ones had given up hope completely. But Jiho was different. He had been planning something for months. In his cell, hidden, under his sleeping mat, he had been writing down everything he learned about Caltharian technology. Every time a guard walked by, he memorized their patterns. Every time he heard them talking, he learned new words in their language. The ship landed with a loud crash that threw everyone against the walls of their cells. Caltharian soldiers in black armor came to open the cages. They carried energy weapons that could burn a hole through a human body in seconds. "Move fast, human animals," shouted one of the soldiers. "Your new home waits for you." As they were pushed out of the ship, Jiho saw their destination. It was a massive mining complex that stretched as far as he could see. Thousands of humans worked under the hot sun, digging deep holes in the ground while Caltharian overseers watched from the shade. But something was different about this place. Jiho could feel it in the air. The humans here moved with purpose. When the guards were not looking, they shared quick glances that seemed to carry secret messages. These people had not given up hope. That night in the sleeping barracks, an old woman named Hana crawled over to where Jiho lay on his thin mattress. "You are new," she whispered. "But your eyes are not dead like some. Do you want to live as a slave forever?" Jiho looked around carefully. The guards were far away, playing their strange card games and drinking their bitter alcohol. "What do you mean?" he asked quietly. "We are not the same humans who were conquered 200 years ago," Hana said. "We learn, we adapt, we remember every mistake the Caltharians make, and we are getting stronger." She showed him something, hidden in her clothing. It was a small device made from stolen Caltharian parts. "This can talk to other camps across the galaxy. We know things. We share information. We are building something they cannot imagine." Jiho felt his heart beat faster. For the first time in years, he felt something that was not fear or sadness. He felt hope. "What are we building?" he asked. Hana smiled. And in that smile, Jiho saw something that made him understand. The Caltharians had made a terrible mistake. They thought breaking humans would make them weaker, but instead, it had made them something new, something dangerous. We are building their end, she said, and our freedom. Outside, the alien stars shined down on a galaxy that did not know what was coming. The Caltharian Empire had ruled for 3,000 years, but their time was almost over. They had pushed humanity too far, and now something unstoppable was waking up. 6 months had passed since the Great Awakening began. Across the galaxy, something strange was happening to humans everywhere. They were changing in ways that made the Caltharian Empire very nervous. On mining station Omega-3, Jiho worked with his hands in the dark tunnels, but his mind was somewhere else. He could feel other humans thinking the same thoughts as him. Not magic, but something real. When one human learned how to break a Caltharian lock, somehow other humans in different places knew how to do it too. "The overseers are talking," whispered Mina, as she carried her heavy bucket of rocks. "They say humans are becoming dangerous. They want to separate us more, but it was too late for that. Whatever was happening to humans could not be stopped by putting them in different places. If anything, it made them stronger." Dr. Hana had been working in the medical station for 3 years. She was supposed to keep sick humans alive long enough to work again. But lately she had been doing something else. She was studying Caltharian technology and biology. Every night she looked at the alien equipment with new understanding. "Look at this." She showed Jiho a small device she had taken apart. "This is how they control their ships. But see this part here? It is not very good. A human could make it better." Jiho held the device in his hands. Somehow, just by touching it, he understood how it worked. This had never happened before. 6 months ago, Caltharian technology was like magic to him. Now it seemed simple. "How do I know this?" he asked himself. "Because we are learning faster than before," said Hana. "All of us, everywhere. When one human figures something out, we all get a little bit smarter." On the other side of the galaxy, a young human woman named Sora was doing something impossible. She was in a Caltharian weapon factory, and she was not just making their guns. She was making them better, much better. The Caltharian supervisor, a cruel creature named Vextal, watched her work with confusion. "Human? How do you know to do this? We did not teach you these methods." Sora looked up at him with eyes that seemed older than her 25 years. "I just know," she said simply. But inside, she was thinking about 17 different ways to turn his own weapons against him. Every day, more humans were discovering they could do things they had never learned. Engineers could fix machines they had never seen before. Fighters could predict enemy movements like they were reading a book. Even children could understand complex plans just by hearing them once. The Caltharian Empire had files on every species they had conquered. They knew exactly how long each race took to break completely. Humans were supposed to be broken by now. Instead, they were becoming something the Empire had never seen before. Commander Zethrak stood in his command center, reading reports that made no sense. Human workers destroyed 3 mining operations in one day, he told his officers. But each attack was different, perfect, like they knew exactly what to do. "Perhaps they are sharing information through hidden communication devices," suggested one officer. "We found no devices," Zethrak replied. "We searched everything. They are communicating, but not with technology." What the Caltharians did not understand was that they had created the perfect conditions for human evolution. For 200 years, they had put humans under extreme pressure. They had separated families, destroyed cultures, and forced humans to adapt or die. But humans had a special trait that other species did not have. When they were pushed to their limits, they did not just survive. They became better, stronger, smarter. And now, after generations of pressure, that trait was exploding across the entire human population at once. In a secret meeting, deep underground, on Earth, Jiho met with other humans who had the same strange new abilities. They could plan together without speaking. They could understand complex ideas just by looking at each other. "What is happening to us?" asked Tay, a young man who had escaped from a training camp. Old Hannah smiled. She had been studying this mystery for months. The Caltharians think they broke us, she said, but they made us into something new, something they cannot control. Are we still human? Asked Mina. We are more human than ever before, Hannah replied. We are what humans become when they refuse to give up, when they are pushed so hard that they must evolve or die. Around the galaxy, Caltharian officials were starting to panic. Humans were escaping from every type of prison they had built. Worse, they were helping other enslaved species escape too. The Empire's control was slipping away, but the humans were not interested in just escaping anymore. They were planning something bigger, something that would make sure no other species would ever suffer what they had suffered. We need to be careful, Jiho told the secret meeting. They are scared of us now. That makes them more dangerous. Good, said Hannah. Let them be scared. They should have thought about that before they decided to push humanity too far. Above their heads, in the Caltharian ships orbiting Earth, alien commanders were asking the same question over and over. What have we created? The answer was simple and terrifying. They had created their own end. 1 year after the Great Change began, something impossible was happening across the galaxy. Humans were not just escaping anymore. They were winning. Captain Sora stood on the bridge of a stolen Caltharian warship, watching as 3 more enemy vessels exploded in bright flashes of light. Her crew of 40 humans moved around her like dancers who knew every step by heart. They did not need to speak to each other. Somehow, they all knew what to do. Enemy reinforcements coming from the left, said Tay without looking up from his controls. I see them, replied Mina from the weapons station. 18 ships, heavy armor, weak spots on their engine ports. Sora felt the battle plan form in her mind at the same time it formed in theirs. It was like they were all thinking with the same brain, but each person was still themselves. This was what made humans so dangerous now. They could work together perfectly while still being creative and unpredictable. The Caltharian ships came at them in their usual formation. It had worked for 3,000 years against every other species, but humans were different. They could see the pattern and break it in ways no one expected. Within minutes, all 18 enemy ships were floating dead in space. How do they do this? Asked Admiral Vextar as he watched the battle reports in his command center. Every engagement ends the same way. Our ships are destroyed. Our crews are captured, not killed. What kind of enemy shows mercy while winning so completely? His tactical officer looked nervous. Sir, we have bigger problems. The humans are not fighting alone anymore. On the main screen, images appeared from across the galaxy. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were rising up against their Caltharian masters. The Zephyrian bird people were attacking supply lines. The Nexus crystal beings were sabotaging communication networks. The underwater depth swimmers were destroying naval bases. They are all fighting like humans now, the officer continued. Coordinated, creative, impossible to predict. What the Caltharians did not understand was that humans had become teachers. Everywhere they went, they showed other species how to fight back, not with anger or hatred, but with intelligence and hope. On the planet Kepler-7, Jiho walked through the ruins of what used to be the largest slave camp in the sector. 2 days ago, it had held 50,000 prisoners from 12 different species. Now it was empty, and all the prisoners were free. How did you do it so fast? Asked Kenth, a tall, blue-skinned alien who had been a prisoner for 15 years. The guards, the walls, the weapons, everything is destroyed, but no one died. Jiho looked at the peaceful scene around them. Humans were helping alien families find food and shelter. Former prisoners were working together to build temporary homes. Children from different species were playing together like war had never existed. We learned something important, Jiho said. When you fight with hate, you become like your enemies. When you fight with love, you become something better. This was the secret that made humans unstoppable. They were not fighting to destroy the Caltharian Empire. They were fighting to save everyone in it, including the Caltharians themselves. Dr. Hannah had been studying captured Caltharian soldiers for months. What she discovered changed everything. They are not evil, she told a meeting of human leaders. They are afraid. Their species has been conquering others for so long that they forgot how to do anything else. They think if they stop being strong, someone will enslave them. So what do we do? Asked Captain Sora. We show them a different way, Hana replied. We prove that strength comes from protecting others, not controlling them. This idea spread through human forces faster than any military order could travel. Suddenly, human attacks became different. Instead of destroying Caltharian bases, they turned them into hospitals. Instead of killing enemy soldiers, they captured them and showed them kindness. Instead of taking revenge, they offered friendship. The effect on the Caltharian Empire was devastating. Soldiers began refusing orders. Civilians started asking questions about why they needed to enslave other species. Entire worlds declared independence from the central government. The humans are destroying us, Commander Zethrak told the High Council. But not with weapons, with ideas. What ideas? Demanded the High Chancellor. That there is another way to live. That species can work together instead of fighting. That being strong means protecting the weak, not ruling them. The High Chancellor was quiet for a long moment. Around the council chamber, other Caltharian leaders looked worried and confused. Their empire was falling apart, but not in any way they had ever seen before. How do we fight an idea? Asked one of them. We cannot, Zethrak replied. We can only choose to accept it or die with the old ways. On Earth, in the place where the first human prison camp had been built, Jiho stood with representatives from hundreds of species. They were planning something that had never been tried before in the galaxy's history. A government where every species has a voice, said the Zephyrian ambassador. Laws that protect the weak from the strong, added the Nexus representative. Justice instead of revenge, said the human delegate. As they talked, their words were being broadcast across the galaxy. Billions of beings watched and hoped. For the first time in thousands of years, they could imagine a future without fear. The tide had not just turned. It had become a tsunami of change that would wash away the old galaxy forever. 2 years after the awakening began, the war had changed into something no one had ever seen before. Human forces moved across the galaxy like water flowing around rocks, impossible to stop or predict. But this was not ordinary warfare anymore. This was evolution in action. Admiral Jiho stood in the command center of his flagship, watching holographic displays that showed battles happening in 17 different star systems at the same time. His mind was connected to every human commander in the fleet, sharing thoughts and plans faster than any computer could process. Caltharian reinforcements approaching Sector 9, reported Captain Sora from 3 systems away. But Jiho already knew this. He had felt her thoughts the moment her sensors detected the enemy ships. Moving to intercept, replied Commander Tay from Sector 12. He was already changing course before Jiho could give the order. This was what terrified the Caltharian Empire most. Humans had become a single organism with thousands of bodies, each one thinking independently, but sharing a common purpose. They could coordinate attacks across vast distances without any communication technology. On the surface of the planet Nexus Prime, Dr. Hana worked in a field hospital treating wounded soldiers from both sides of the conflict. Caltharian prisoners lay in beds next to human fighters receiving the same careful medical attention. "Why do you help us?" asked a young Caltharian officer whose arm had been badly burned. "We have been your enemies for centuries." Hana looked at him with gentle eyes. "Because that is what we evolved to do," she said. "We learned that the only way to end war is to care for everyone, even those who hurt us." The Caltharian stared at her in confusion. In his culture, enemies were killed or enslaved. Kindness to opponents was seen as weakness. But humans had proven that kindness could be the strongest weapon of all. Across the galaxy, this pattern was repeating everywhere human forces went. They did not conquer planets, they liberated them. They did not destroy cities, they rebuilt them. They did not enslave populations, they educated them. The Battle of Kef Station showed how completely warfare had changed. The station was a massive Caltharian fortress that protected their main supply route. It should have taken months to capture with traditional methods. Instead, humans did something unprecedented. They surrounded the station and began broadcasting on all frequencies. Not threats or demands for surrender, but stories. Human stories. About freedom, hope, and forgiveness. "My name is Mina," said one voice. "5 years ago, Caltharian soldiers killed my family. I should hate them. But I learned that hate only creates more pain. Now I fight so that no one else will lose their family the way I lost mine." "I am Hyun," said another voice. "I was born in a slave camp. I never saw the sky until I was 20 years old. But I do not want revenge. I want every child in the galaxy to see the sky from the day they are born." For 3 days, these stories continued. The humans never fired a single shot. They just talked, sharing their experiences and their dreams for a better future. On the 4th day, something impossible happened. The Caltharian defenders began opening the station's airlocks from the inside. Soldiers threw down their weapons. Officers refused orders to attack. The fortress surrendered without a battle. "How?" demanded High Commander Zethrak when he received the report. "How do you defeat a fortress with words?" "They did not defeat it," replied his aide. "They converted it. Half our soldiers are now fighting alongside the humans." This was the nightmare that kept Caltharian leaders awake at night. Humans were not just winning battles. They were winning hearts and minds. Every Caltharian who encountered them came away changed, questioning everything they had been taught about strength and conquest. The transformation was not limited to warfare. On planets liberated by human forces, amazing things were happening. Different species that had been enemies for generations were working together. Technology was advancing faster than ever before as minds from across the galaxy shared ideas freely. "Look at this," said Engineer Tay, as he showed his mixed species team a new engine design. Caltharian power systems, human efficiency improvements, Zephyrian navigation technology, and Nexus energy crystals. Together, they create something none of us could build alone. The engine he described could travel between star systems in days instead of months, but more importantly, it proved that cooperation was more powerful than domination. In the deepest regions of space, Caltharian high command was falling apart. Generals refused to attack human targets. Admirals questioned their orders. Entire fleets were switching sides or simply going home. "We cannot fight them," Admiral Vextar told the Emergency Council meeting. "Every time we try, we lose more than ships and soldiers. We lose our people's faith in our cause." "Then what do you suggest?" asked the High Chancellor. "Surrender," Vextar said quietly. "Not because we are defeated, but because they have shown us a better way to live." The room fell silent. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Caltharian Empire was admitting that another species might be superior to them, not in weapons or technology, but in wisdom. Meanwhile, Jiho felt the thoughts and emotions of millions of humans across the galaxy. They were tired of fighting, but they would continue until every being in the galaxy was free. They had evolved beyond their original nature, becoming something the universe had never seen before. They had become hope itself, unstoppable and eternal. 3 years after New Sol burned, Admiral Jiho stood at the bridge of his flagship as it approached the Caltharian homeworld. Behind him stretched a fleet of 10,000 ships from 47 different species. But they had not come as conquerors. They had come to offer something the galaxy had never seen before, a choice. The massive blue planet of Calthar Prime filled the view screen. For 3,000 years, this world had been the center of an empire that enslaved entire civilizations. Now it would become something else entirely. "Open all communication channels," Jiho commanded. His voice would reach every Caltharian on the planet below. "People of Calthar Prime," he began. "My name is Jiho. I am human. 3 years ago, your empire killed 12 million of my people in a single day. You thought this would break us. Instead, it awakened something you could never imagine. On the planet's surface, millions of Caltharians listened to words they had never expected to hear from a conquered species. We are not here for revenge. Jiho continued. We are here to offer you what you never offered us, a choice. You can surrender and help us build a new galaxy where no species enslaves another, or you can fight and face the consequences. But know this, we will not become like you. We will not rule through fear. High Chancellor Morthak sat in his throne room, surrounded by his remaining loyal generals. The mighty empire that had once controlled half the galaxy was down to this single world. Everything else had either joined the human alliance or declared independence. What are your orders, Chancellor? Asked General Kexvar. Morthak looked at the screens showing the human fleet. 3 years ago, he would have laughed at such a small force approaching his homeworld. Now he knew better. These humans had defeated his empire not with superior weapons, but with something far more dangerous: hope. I want to speak with their leader, he said quietly. An hour later, Jiho materialized in the throne room through a transport beam. He came alone and unarmed, wearing simple clothes instead of military uniform. Dr. Hana and Captain Sora appeared beside him, also without weapons. You are either very brave or very foolish, Morthak said, studying the humans who had destroyed his empire. We are what you made us, Jiho replied. You taught us that strength comes from surviving the impossible. You showed us that unity is more powerful than individual ambition. You proved that some things, once awakened, can never be stopped. Morthak stood from his throne. He was nearly 8 feet tall, with gray skin and black eyes that had never shown mercy to any conquered species. But now, looking at these small humans, he felt something he had never experienced before: respect. What do you want from us? He asked. Help us build something better, said Dr. Hana. Your people have knowledge and skills that could benefit everyone. You understand organization and logistics. But instead of using these gifts to control others, use them to protect and serve. You are asking us to abandon everything we are, protested General Kexvar. No, said Captain Sora. We are asking you to become everything you could be. Your species has the potential for greatness. But true greatness comes from lifting others up, not pushing them down. Through the palace windows, they could see human ships landing peacefully in the capital city. But instead of soldiers, they carried doctors, teachers, engineers, and aid workers. They were already beginning to help Caltharian civilians who had been suffering under their own government's harsh rule. This is impossible, whispered one of the generals. No conquering army behaves like this. We are not a conquering army, Jiho explained. We are a liberation force. We fight not to rule but to free, not to destroy but to build, not to revenge but to heal. As the day progressed, something remarkable happened. Caltharian civilians began coming out of their homes to meet the humans. Children who had been taught to fear aliens were playing with human soldiers. Elderly Caltharians were sharing food with their former enemies. By evening, Morthak made his decision. Standing before cameras that broadcast across the galaxy, he spoke words that would echo through history. The Caltharian Empire is ended, he announced. Not because we were defeated in battle, but because we were shown a better way to exist. We surrender not just our weapons, but our old beliefs. We ask to join the new Galactic Alliance as equals, not rulers. The transformation was immediate and total. Across the galaxy, the last holdout systems surrendered peacefully. Species that had been enemies for millennia began working together. The Age of Empires was over. Dr. Hana established the first Galactic Medical Corps, with doctors from every species working together to heal the wounds of centuries of war. Captain Sora led the formation of the peacekeeping fleet, dedicated to protecting the weak and preventing future conflicts. But it was Jiho who spoke the words that would become the foundation of the new galactic government. We are all one people under the same stars. What hurts one species hurts us all. What helps one species helps us all. Years later, historians would call it the Great Awakening, the moment when humanity evolved beyond its original nature and became something the universe had never seen. They had become living proof that no force in the galaxy was more powerful than the determination to protect others. They had pushed humanity too far, and now they were truly unstoppable. Not because they could not be defeated, but because their ideas could never die.